Welcome to the Lucky Orange Show, where we teach you how to unlock the potential of raw data and shape it into stories that grow your business faster. Let's get into today's conversation.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Lucky Orange Show. I'm your host, Sean McCarthy from the team at Lucky Orange. And today we continue our dive in this season into helping you make better use of all that data that you're collecting. We all know that there's mountains of data stacking up. Some of it we're getting great use out of, but a lot of it's just sitting there. And today we're bringing back in one of my favorite conversations that we had in the early days of the Lucky Orange Show with Sabir. We're bringing him back in to talk all about e-commerce and data and everything that he knows. That first episode, if you haven't watched it, I implore you, once you finish this one, to go back and check out everything that he had to say. We went through the entire 8D system, the dimensions you should consider when you're optimizing your site. I'm sure we'll hit that a little bit today as well. But Sabir, welcome back to the Lucky Orange Show. I'm excited to chat again.
Thank you, Sean. It's great to be on Lucky Orange again.
So we interact quite regularly about Rapid 2X and all the systems that you have working with brands to help them scale. And I think what I've been finding is that a lot of these brands are successful to some degree before they even discover you or before you discover them. And they're wanting to scale. They might see glimpses of it working. If a brand is on the precipice of this 2X, 10X growth, what's usually holding them back? What's usually stopping them from actually making that happen?
I actually call it, this is the term that I've coined so far. I call it the gap, And what do I mean by that? The gap, it's not the retail store you find in every corner of a mall, right? This gap is a skills gap. It's expertise gap. It's, even though it sounds cliche, what got you here won't get you there type of a gap, right? And every e-commerce founder and e-commerce brand goes through this gap, when you are starting your journey, right? Let's start from the very beginning, right? You're in that 0 to 100K, right? You hit that either 50K or 100K, you hit a gap, right? And go like, why am I not growing? We did so well up to this point. What's going on? Then what do? You start making a lot of bad decisions, right? You start you're going like, listening to all sorts of random advice or bad advice or whatever. And usually it actually ends up hurting you. And that's another lesson you learn, that you have expertise gap, right? Meaning that you don't know the right experts. That's the expertise gap, right? And from 100K to 250K, another one. 250K to 500, another one, right? From 500K to 1 million, somewhere in the middle there. Some of them get success up to 1 million, but 750, they will hit a roadblock. I have so many case studies, so many over my career that I can point to, that I can tell you when it exactly happened. Even more recently, Oram Brothers, for example, that joined our program, $1.5 million back in January 20th, 2024 is when they joined us. And that, what happened was they were stuck at $1.5 million, right? With mounting losses. And when you're trying to figure it out to see what's stunting your growth, what do? You go fill up your credit cards, you go get loan. Because the thing is, when you are a $1.5 million business, the problem with it is you have an operation that eats capital, right?
Yeah.
Your inventory, your people, your warehouse, you name it, right? Your meta ads account, everything eats capital. And the thing is, if you have not figured out a profitable path forward, that's your cash flow, right? You're going to run into a lot of trouble. And in their case, the same thing happened, right? And then fast forward to September 9, they joined the program, and if within the first 6 weeks, 112% growth, right? So very successful company, grew up to that point. 2 brothers and a sister-in-law, 3 of them, and the whole family is involved in the business now, right? Grew it up to that point. But the thing is, every brand hits that mark, like it's 1.5 million, 2.5 million, 2.75 million, 3 million. From 3 million to even to getting to 5 million is a struggle, right? Because the thing is, ultimately what it does, just kind of fast forward and finish up the Oram Brothers story there. September 9, 2024, 1 p.m., we surpassed 1.5 million. From September 9, 1:01 p.m. to December 31st, we put up another $1.5 million to the brand. So $3 million a year within less than 12 months, we grew something that was not growing. Not only grew it, but we also profitably grew it. We increased prices by 35%, right? So that means more cash flow. And we also rationalized the product catalog, get rid of things that they shouldn't be in. A lot of e-com founders, what they don't understand is that they try to do everything. The trick, here's the thing, right? And your childhood and my childhood, I'm going to bring back our childhood when we were like 5 or 6 years old. And here's the lesson I'm going to give you today, right? To all the e-com founders. And 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 the story, and basically what it is a child's fable, right? And my advice to all ecom founders: be the tortoise or the turtle, and don't be the rabbit.
Right.
Slow and study, very mindful, being purposeful. You are going to win the race in a big way, right? Over 25 years, hundreds of ecom brands, D2C, Amazon, whatever you name it, one over $1 billion incremental across all these brands. Oh yeah, but Sabir, you might be just American brands. No, 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 no. Japanese brands, European brands, Middle Eastern brands, Australian brands, New Zealand brands. Yeah, as long as it's on planet Earth, I have touched it. You know, regardless of what category they were in or what they were, what marketing they were doing. They could exist in Netherlands and they're marketing to Australia and New Zealand. By the way, whenever I pull up these examples, sounds like arbitrary. Actually, these are rapid 2Xers in the program.
Right. Very real people, very real brands. We're not just making stuff up here.
Yeah.
When we talk about revenue growth, that rightfully sits at the center of a lot of conversation when it comes to pointing to success stories. In our world, on the website specifically, the phrase, the metric, conversion rate comes up all the time. And I know it's a pretty nuanced metric. We are, by definition, at Lucky Orange, a conversion rate optimization tool, but sometimes we need to put an asterisk there and say, don't just focus on conversion rate. So how do you bring conversion rate, kind of zooming in here a little bit, how do we bring conversion rate into the conversation? How do you talk to people about this who might arrive and say, we want to increase our conversion rate? We got plenty of traffic. What does that conversation look like?
I think that I should work with Lucky Orange to rebrand that term. We need to get rid of, number one. All right, so conversion rate is a bullshit KPI, right? I have been part of this journey, the e-commerce birth all the way up to now. It's a little bit over 25 years, right? So I've been around it for a long time. From the very get-go, I built a lot of the infrastructure related to e-commerce also, right? Because in the early days, there was no Shopify. You had to build everything. There was no Google Analytics. You had to build it, if you wanted data and you need to analyze it. Conversion rate, I'll use a very crude example, right? Let's say we have a hypothetical room, and in this hypothetical room, half of the room is filled 50 people from there are American basketball players, NBA basketball players, very, very tall people. In fact, the shortest person there is 6'4", right? So very, very tall people. And the other half of the room is 50 dwarfs from the Lord of the Rings, right? That species there, right? Then I go like, Sean, what is the average height of the room? You'll bring out your calculator on your iPhone. You would punch in the numbers, go like 50. Let's assume that they are 6'5" height. And then the dwarfs, let's assume they're between 3'7" and 4.4 feet 2. And now if you're a Lord of the Rings or a Hobbit fan or whatever, I apologize if I didn't get the dwarf height right. I mean small people, right? So you do the math, and then you come back, Sean, you go like 5'7", Sabir, right? Like, okay, Sean, how many 5'7" people do you have in the room, right? The answer is zero.
Yeah.
Conversion rate is that, right? In the early days of e-commerce, it made sense, right? You bring a certain, and it was basically a remnant of the retail days, right? How many people walked into your retail store, physical store? How many people walked in? How many people bought, and how many transactions you had? And the number in the retail store is between 30 to 35%, roughly, depending on if you're a specialty or not, right? That's the number there. So that they said, oh, you know what? We should have something like that. The number of people that come to the site, let's see how many of them transact. But beyond giving you mental anguish that my conversion rate is low, or my conversion rate, you're very happy, my conversion rate is high, right? So it doesn't really tell you anything. Instead, I think Lucky Orange should rebrand itself as here's the term, session value optimization, right? SVO, right? That's from Sabir, from Rapid 2X, right? And what is session value? Session value is every channel you have within e-commerce. Because we're in 2025, there's maturity of channels. You have variety of channels that feed traffic into your site, both online as well as offline, like digital, I mean, like postcard marketing, direct mail, stuff like that, right? So they feed that. Every channel has a certain number of attributed revenue that you, attribution is another topic, but we'll talk about it at a very basic level right now. Attributed revenue, and then you know how many people came from that channel, right? Every channel, meta ads, every channel gives you their attributed data, attributed sales, and attributed traffic that came to your site. And also, you have third-party tools like Ad Beacon that gives you that information. Also, it gives you all pretty clear first-party attribution about what do they actually brought up. When you divide that revenue over the number of sessions from that channel, it gives you the productivity of that channel in revenue terms because you're an e-commerce site, right? If you do it generally for the entire site, okay, I had total revenue for the month of, let's say April is going to be over soon. So on May 1st, this Thursday, you can run this data, right? You're going to do, you're going to do total revenue for the site divided by number of sessions you had to the site. So session value is that division. And when you get that number, it will be something like $3.76. So if you do things equally good or equally bad, right? If you want to increase your traffic by 100 sessions equally across the board, you will get, those sessions will give you $3.76 in revenue. So per day, if you're increasing it by 100 sessions, equally good or equally bad, you will get $376 added to your daily revenue, right? Very, very useful for an e-commerce brand to know that number, right? And then when you do the same math for meta ads, it's going to give you a number. It will be $1.75, something like that. This is a hypothetical scenario, right? You should do your own math, right? And then you do it for Google Ads. Google Ads gives you something like $4.25. Let's go with ridiculous examples here, right? When you know the session value of meta ads is $1.75, and then you know that the session value of Google ads is $4.25, right? When decision comes to where should we allocate our paid media budget, it's very useful information to have, right? Session value, so that you know where to allocate that money. Where do you need to allocate it? It makes a lot of sense from that perspective, right? And then you could apply it. Not only that, is it worth our time? Should we be spending more time and energy towards email marketing? Which most e-com founders go like, well, we pay a monthly fee to Klaviyo. It doesn't cost much. Yeah, it's the number one highest ROI channel. 36-1, ROAS. Why don't you want to pay more attention to that to actually get that sort of an ROAS, right? But when you do the session value on there, it will be something ridiculous like $18, right? Compare in this hypothetical example. Is it worth our time? Should we be spending time on content marketing and social media? There's a number to that with session value. Should we be spending money on search engine optimization and AI SEO and stuff like that? There's a number to that. You can divide those numbers and is it worth it or not? It actually gives you direction on time and money on how you should be allocating your budget.
And then I imagine when you have that number set and you have that benchmark, it's obviously a living metric. You can drill in and look at returning customers versus new customers, returning traffic, new traffic, and take an approach to say, we're seeing really, really good return when we email these people, when we go after our returning customers, and that helps support, our revenue per session overall. Is that kind of the approach that you do drill in further?
Oh yeah, you have to. I mean, this is step one, literally.
Right.
Then you have to dig into RFM lifecycle: recency, frequency, monetary value. Most Shopify business owners, unfortunately, what I see is they don't even understand what that is, right? For some reason, because with this over reliance on single channel, investment, meta ads, right? There were some basics of marketing that were left behind, right? Nobody pays attention to it. but that's the gold mine. That's where you need to do it. And you said that returning customers, when you're trying to drill down, the problem is, I'll give you another statistics from hundreds of Shopify brands, right? This is actual data. Uh, One hit wonders is a term that I've coined, right? One hit wonders are, if you remember, songs like Las Ketchup Song, Mambo Number Five,
Sure, of
Macarena,
course.
all of these songs, right? We have customers in our database that are one hit wonders. They sing only once to us by giving us money one time, right? So when you look at statistics of Shopify business owners, the one hit wonders, customers who have bought only one time in their entire lifetime, right? Divided by the number of people who have bought at least once, meaning all of your customers, not your prospects, just your customers. When you divide these two numbers up, most Shopify businesses land in that percentage, land between 70% to 100%. 70% to 100% of your database of customer is one hit wonders. That's a transactional business. You don't have a replenishment business that has any kind of a, then you go to that next metric, right? It costs so much more to acquire a new customer than it is, and every business should actually calculate that number than keeping a customer, right? But I can tell you from actual facts, most Shopify businesses, 70 to 100% of their database is one hit wonder on that first transaction. Let me make it worse for you, Sean. This does not take into account returns. If you're
Right.
in businesses like fashion or luxury or anything that has to do with size or color, right? That or taste, that's also food industry, right? The return rates are very high, right? So if you take that into account, that 70 to 100% goes to 90 to 150%
Insane.
of your database, meaning that you have to keep how many did we actually keep and they didn't return their products versus people who hit us once, but even that once they said, nope, not for me. Send me my money back, chargeback fees, and so on.
You mentioned the idea of being over reliant on a single channel, and I think that that's a pretty common pitfall and something that people can find themselves in when they see success and they start growing on meta ads or whatever it is. But what can teams look at in new sources that say there's opportunity here, there's potential to scale here with a different channel? Because I imagine you would advise people that they need to have a bunch of different channels running to to make themselves less fragile, really.
Yeah, so one of the top advice I give is you're always in testing, right?
Mm,
So you know what they say, A/B testing. In my book, A/B testing is always B testing, right?
right, right,
That's
right.
what A/B testing is, right? Because the thing is, things happen all the time. It happens, right? Over my career, I can point to 1,000 different things that has happened, right? We just talked about iOS 14 update, with the email thing that happened. That
Yep,
happened, right? Uh, January 20th, TikTok was no longer going to be in the United States, right? Things like that happen. And now, right now, the uncertainty around US tariffs and trade wars and other even physical wars that are
sure,
going on,
sure.
those are just realities. You know, things like that can happen all the time, right? Or even if you're in the food industry, very recently we had a shortage of eggs and stuff like that because of disease and things of that nature. So things happen all the time. That's the constant. You have to understand that change will happen, and could be a very drastic change, like that happened to the humankind in March of 2020, right? So
Hmm.
just you have to be. That's what you need to make your friend. Change is your friend. That will happen. In that case, so over reliance on single channel, one, you have to get away from it. So always be testing means that you put, if you don't know, you're starting your journey up, right? Like you don't even have that first channel. When you start it up, have a certain amount of budget, set a criteria, right? Yeah, and your criteria should not be, well, even if we lose a little bit, we're gonna learn. No, don't. Warren Buffett says rule number one: don't lose money. So the same applies here, right?
Sure, yeah.
You're either learning or you're earning a lot. So those are the two acceptable answers to that. So you should take that, and as you're learning, you should create like a 3-tier system, right? everything goes into test. I'm going to test this channel. I'm starting with the first one. Let's call it TikTok or Meta ads or Google ads. Which one you want, you start with that. Once it starts proving itself, like I said, the ROAS of 1.5 does not make sense for businesses, right? Why doesn't it not make sense, Sean? It's very basic math, right? I gave you $1 to spend on Meta ads. You took it, and Meta ads said, "Oh, $1.50 revenue," right? Now, who's the first one that's going to get paid in that process? Meta, right? So I have to give the dollar back. What's left over? 50 cents, right? Now I need to buy inventory. Let's assume that your gross margin is 50%, right? So that means my cost of goods is 50%, right? So if that's the case, $1.50 revenue means 75 cents is my cost of goods, right? So now if I subtract 50 cents from 75 cents, what's left over? What's left over is I owe you a quarter,
Right.
25 cents I owe you still. What do you need to do? You already paid Meta so that they're happy. Now, what are you going to do as a business? You're going to shortchange yourself and buy less inventory, right? Because you ran out of it. So what is the right ROAS in that scenario? 2.5. This is tied in with the question that you asked, right? When you have a better understanding of your margin, and just if you what's break even, it means that you paid the ad guy. If you have an agency involved, you need to pay agency. Agency fees are typically 12 to 14% of media spend. Take that into account also, right? And also the fact that you sold goods, and plus there's another player in that game. There's a 3PL, and then there's UPS, FedEx, or local carrier. Those 5 people need to get paid in order for you to get break even. This does not even count you making any kind of income. This does not take into account at all, you paying other people that are working on copywriting and email creative and ad creative and all of that stuff. Those are your operating costs, right? So 2.5 is the right number for your ROAS. When you take that into account, and you what you're doing is your test, learn, and optimize, test, learn, and optimize, test, learn, and optimize. When you go through that flywheel and you get that number to 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, 2.5, right? And you start to scale slowly from there. Maybe that 2.5 is going to come down to 2.4, right? And then you make adjustments to it. That's how you should be doing it. And once you bring that number up to a decent spend on a daily basis. So what is it? When does it get out of the testing cycle? You're no longer doing $25 per day, $50 per day. Now you're doing $200, $300 per day, right? And you have a pretty good handle over your retargeting, your prospecting. You know your customer acquisition costs. You understand your retention cost if you're acquiring them through pay channels and stuff like that. Once you have a pretty good idea of what that is, then that channel gets upgraded into a mature channel, right? Now you're going to be taking that and trying to scale it even more. Now you can introduce other channels for you to test, learn, and optimize. Same attention, same veracity. Like it has to test. But this ad was working on Meta. Yeah, but you're on TikTok. It's not going to work, So don't make that assumption. That's a bad assumption, right? Oh, this creative worked really well in paid media. Why isn't it working for social post or email marketing? Because there are different channels. That's why. So you have to have that mentality of, regardless of what channel it is. Email marketing, you should be testing. You have a lot more room for you to test there with Klaviyo. SMS marketing, any kind of DM messaging you could do through WhatsApp or whatever. You have to like have this mindset of everything is a test. The data is going to tell me to move forward, and I'm going to move forward. And remember the rule: don't lose money.
Right.
Don't lose money, because if you give it off to wrong people, you're trying to kiss a lot of frogs to find my prince or princess. Unfortunately, in the e-commerce game, I can tell you a lot of those frogs are toxic frogs, poisonous frogs, right?
Yeah.
That means that, unfortunately, I've seen businesses go into bankruptcy because of decisions made by the owner, the e-com founder, to decide to go a certain way with a freelancer or an agency or something like that, and believe whatever they were saying was gospel. And that was a bad decision. That was the root of the problem.
You used a word earlier that I think makes some people squeamish, which is attribution.
Yeah.
And it's way simpler in some channels where it's more of a dollar in to ROAS thing. But when we do start introducing more organic visibility, brand even comes into play, and we have a more omni-channel approach, it does become more difficult. There are tools these days that try and help. Where does attribution fit into all this so that you can intelligently scale and optimize and not miss something in a blind spot that's actually carving away at the revenue? What does attribution look like?
So here's the thing, all the channels, every channel tells you that they're telling you the truth, right? And partially, it's a partial truth, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's elimination of the other part, right? The lie part of it, right? That's the elimination. So you're eliminating the lie in order to tell half a truth, right? And they're almost right? So they say that, like, when we tell you that this traffic was attributed to us, right? Some of them go out of hand with that attribution, and I don't agree with that, right? Meaning that, oh, that was a view through attribution. What does that really
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
right? You know, so I mean, I understand impression share, that makes sense, right? I can understand that, but you cannot take full credit for the transaction, right? I'll give you partial credit for the transaction. You cannot take full credit for it, right? So you have to keep in mind that sort of attribution, that, for example, Meta tells you that everything that they're telling you, that's the attributed revenue. Okay, based on their KPIs and based on their data, take a look at it. That's fine, right? Then you go to Google. All of their properties says pretty much 98% of your revenue came from Google properties. It came from YouTube. It came from Google search. It came from Gmail. It came from Google ads, it came from YouTube ads, it came from all of their properties, right? And who's telling you that? Google Analytics is telling you that, right? Because when you look at that data, everything is Google based, right? And when you look at the other channels, it tells, oh yeah, they had something to do with it, but we're the ones who actually finished the game, finished the thing, and brought the person to crossover, right, and become a conversion and a purchase, right? This is where, and you do the same exercise with Klaviyo. Even though it's free, it gives you that data too. It says, oh, it was us, we are the heroes in the room, right? This is where you have to have first party attribution, and there are so many apps that are out there. Personally, the one that I really like is AdBeacon, right? They're among the attribution platforms. They're a little bit lesser known, but they're really good at what they do with e-commerce, right? And its attribution is not strictly a game for paid media. That's what most people think that it's for. You have to think more holistically. You have to look at, I want to know what the truth actually looks like, the whole picture. You have to own that data in order to tell that, right? And here's the thing: why is attribution such a difficult topic? Because the thing is, with the consumers, first of all, the consumer attention span is 1.7 seconds, right, in 2025, right? That's the fact, right? It's 1.7 seconds. If your site is taking longer than that to make your point, in order to sell to someone, this is one of the reasons your bounce rate is so high, above 65%, right, on average. This is the reason that your ROAS is low. This is the reason that evil conversion rate KPI that I don't like at all is lower, is artificially lower, because you're not optimizing to the consumer attention span, right? So when it comes to, so when it comes to that sort of attention span, you have to be you have to really ultra optimize it for that for that channel, and understand where that comes from. So first, you need to get the attention span right. Number two, that when it comes to the attribution, then your attribution is going to be correct. I'm still don't believe that it's going to be on that platform that's telling you that their source of truth. You have to own it, and that's why a platform like an app like AdBeacon does a great job of doing that, right? It gives you that sort of a data, right? And also to bring in, like I've said on previously on this podcast before, to me, I want to know, what are they doing. Don't tell me, because when you survey people, they'll tell you whatever they want to tell you, right? You ask them, hey, to households in a random town, Do you recycle? Everybody thinks that it's a social responsibility. 99% of people will say yes, right? When do you find out? You put a camera. You put a camera and you watch, right? And then you find out that everything is mixed and matched into a trash can, and they just throw it out. And nobody's recycling, right? Or very little number of people recycle, right? The same applies to, like, with Lucky Orange, for example. That's the other tool that gives me that sort of a visibility. So Ad Beacon gives me absolute attribution that I can look at, that I can own. That's my data, right? So that's one part of it. The other part of it is how are they behaving? So Lucky Orange gives me the heat map of where are they going on the page, where there are dead zones. I am very interested in dead zones, because dead zones, especially in the first 2/3 of the page, 1/3 of the page, that's where most of that interaction is going to be. If I have any dead zones, it means that I'm losing people to bounce rate, a lower ROAS, lower session value because of it. I know that, right? And it takes, with the attribution, it does take 7 to 10 impressions of your brand and your product for that consumer to actually bring you back into their purchase consideration, right? So this is one of the reasons, like, when people complain to me and say, "Oh, we're doing retargeting ads, it's not working," right? Who are you retargeting? Oh yeah, meta ads. We selected site visitors, people who came to our site. They were interested. They did not add to cart or do anything. All right. So why are you doing that? I can tell you, but on average, if you're really even doing an okay job, your 65% of your traffic is going to be. Let's assume that your meta ads and Advantage Plus is like really primed for the right audience, right? So it's not 80% bounce rate, is 65% bounce rate. So out of every 100 people, 65 people will definitely bounce from your site. 35 people are going to do anything with your site. So what are you doing with those 35 people? Oh no, we're saying anyone who came to our site that didn't buy, we want to retarget them. So I can tell you have 65 to 70% budget loss, right? You're targeting the wrong people. But before even I get to that problem of bounced people, the problem is your site is not tuned to consumer attention span, so that you're artificially, those later KPIs are artificially bloated, right? And it's not right.
It seems like in a lot of, and again, the last conversation we had, we went through the 8 dimensions. A lot of this is optimizing channels, optimizing your site performance, pricing, all these things. I imagine one of the more difficult things to optimize, though, if you see something in the data pointing in this direction, is product. So when you are working with somebody, I imagine at the point that you're working with them, they probably have some product winners, they might have some product losers and everything in between. What do you see in the data that says, and maybe it's a very clear answer, that says
it's a very clear answer.
We have a product problem. What does the data say that says we have a product problem?
Most founders are very happy because they come from some sort of a product background, right? They like a product, whatever that product is, right? And they fall in love with the idea of having a lot of products. They don't fall in love with getting results. They fall in love with a lot of products. And it's this issue with falling in love with a lot of products is also, because my competition has a lot of products. What do you mean by that? Oh, they're in these different categories. Okay, why do you think that they're your competition, right? They don't have a clear answer to that, right? Oh, but our competition has 27 different colors. Maybe that's our problem. We have only 3 colors. We have white, black, and gray, right? They have every color of the rainbow, right? But how do you know that actually, this advice I was taught very young with the Vitamin Shop experience. Jeff actually said this to me. Jeff Horowitz, the founder of Vitamin Shop. I was going on and on how intelligently I had done competitive analysis and stuff like that of all the vitamins, and assuming that he didn't know anything about the vitamins. He had only been doing it 25 years before me, right? So assuming that, but I had all this intelligent. He goes like, okay, let me ask you. This is all very good, very detailed stuff, Sabir. How do you know that they made the right decision? How do you know that all these things that you found out that they made the right decision? Like, what do you mean by that? Like, how do you know that these categories you're telling me to make products in, which I know how to make products, I can make it like that. Very, snap of a finger, I can generate like 15 different categories of vitamins. I know how. I know all the bottling companies, gel cap companies, ingredient companies, no problem. I can do it in a snap, right? But how do you know that this company that you're telling me, I don't want to name them, right? This company you're telling me that they made the right decision. How do you know that that person, that VP of marketing that did that, is not fired right now? And in fact, I have their resume. How do you know that, right?
Mm.
That's a legitimate question, right? I
Yeah.
didn't know,
Very
right?
smart.
I didn't know. I didn't know that if it was a very bad decision that somebody got fired over that bad decision, right? I didn't know that. That's a
Hmm.
from my engineering side. I don't think that, oh wow, how stupid am I to even think about this? No, my engineering side said, wow, that's a very intelligent question, right? That's absolutely right. Yeah, I don't know, right? I don't know. Do you know? He goes like, yeah, here you go. Here's the resume of that VP of marketing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So, and going back to the ecom founders, don't fall in love with the results. Don't fall in love with just because the market, right? The market has so many more products, whatever. And I can give you this, your statistics in your Shopify data, right? Follow the 80%, 80/20 rule, right? Well, it's called Parkinson's law, Pareto's principle,
Right.
whatever, 80/20 rule, right? 80/20 rule will show you that 20% of your product portfolio, even right now, it represents 80% of your revenue, right? And what is the other 80% of product catalog doing to you? As it is messing with your cash flow because it's collecting dust, literally collecting dust. If you have 3PL, they're charging you square footage for that dust that it's collecting, right? And also, because you have this mental anguish of why does this 80% of my inventory does not move, what are you doing? You're spending, this is how ridiculous this is. You're spending 80% of your time obsessing about something that produces 20% of your revenue. And what now your attention, your capital is stuck, and it just doesn't make sense, right? When you follow that 80/20 rule, you would find out a couple of things. One, you would find out what business you should not be in, right? It should be very clear cut. I know that ecom founders, because they fall in love, I mean, literally, it is falling in love with products, right? They fall in love with their products because their daughter taught them how this incredible, she looks cute, holding the product in that product photo. Emotionally, they're very connected to it. I'm the evil person in the room that says, you know what? I'm sorry, we have to discontinue that product. We need let's clearance it. Let's get our cash, and then we'll redeploy it in a smarter way. And that's why you cannot be also married to a bad decision for a long time. You have to let go of that bad decision, get your cash out. That cash can actually fuel. Imagine now if I take that and put it towards advertising that 80% of
Hmm.
my revenue. If my 80% of my revenue grows by even 10%, that's a gigantic leap compared to you growing the 20% by 100%.
Yeah, totally. And I know that we've mentioned Rapid 2X a few times, and one of the things that kind of always continues to shock me because we're in the loop in the community, we see results and success stories. One of the things that always sneaks up on me is the results that get shared. And there's, I think even monthly you share like top winners, and we're talking some major growth for people. And it is just, it might be as simple as having the evil person in the room saying, let's keep it real. This is a business. There's 8 dimensions. There's these things you have to be paying attention to. There is a way to succeed here. There's a path to success for almost any business. I mean, if you're not willing to get over your own ego or get out of your own way, you might not make it. Not all businesses obviously make it. I'm curious if you could just tell us a little bit about what's going on in Rapid 2X, if there's a cohort coming up, anything new that's been happening, and feel free to shine a light on any success stories as well as you go along.
Yeah, so we've had tremendous, and thank you for sharing the community stuff, right? I mean, we do celebrate Rapid 2X champions,
Mm-hmm.
every time that every single month as they're progressing through the program and how they're how they're succeeding and stuff like that. So we have a leaderboard that we actually celebrate. That right now it's bragging rights for business owners, and that's the other thing that you miss when you're a business owner. When you're an e-com business owner, you're usually, it's a lonely business, right? You're at the top.
Totally.
That's it. Who can you share your war stories with, or your battles, or your challenges for that matter, right? That's the thing, that, and you want to be part of a community that where you feed off of each other's energy, and also I'm the one person that you in there that keeps you on track and say, no, no, don't do that, do this, because the thing is, I have gone through all those battle scars. I have pretty deep scars and deep lashes on my back, no hair left on my head. This is not a Dwayne Johnson cut, even though I look good in it, but
For sure.
I've lost it for good reason, right? That's why, where you have to, so in the program we do celebrate our champions, every single month we post them, and actually all the rapid 2xers get very excited about that, right? And I've had one lady, her name is, she only goes by the name B, right? She's the founder of Link Necklaces, right? She started with us in the first 6 weeks. Like, we were putting up these amazing numbers in her cohort. She was getting like depressed, like, why are these people seeing results, I'm not seeing it, right? Said, like, listen, something, some people are at different stages. Like, you might have had more foundation to put in there. Just go with it. Don't give up. Just can continue going. She kept on going. 12 weeks later, she talked about, you have to have patience. Remember, one of the things that you have heard me say this, Sean, before, right? Be the tortoise, not the rabbit, right? Slow and steady wins the race. Like, this game, you have to be very intelligent about the things you're doing, because if you're the rabbit, you're gonna lose a lot of money very quickly with a lot of bad decisions. You cannot do that, right? So she keeps going through, and then January hits. Now she's good. Go like, Sabir, I'm growing over 300%.
Amazing. Yeah.
Right? That's
That's
great.
awesome.
What are you doing about the inventory? Goes like,
Oh no, new problems.
I go like, you need to pay attention to the inventory. Just make sure that you're getting enough inventory, so that you can keep up with it. Since starting January 1st, boom, month after month, consistently she has been a Rapid 2X champion, every
Amazing.
single month, in the top 10, right? And we have a pretty big list of brands, and they grow at varying degrees. And in her case, it was like she was climbing up from a negative trend, and for her to see this positive 300% over last year's ridiculous numbers she had because of growth, even beating that by 300%, that was fabulous, right? So there are things like that people do experience. Is just trusting the process, trusting the framework. This is not something crafted over a lunch table or dinner or conversation. It's 25 years in the making, right? And with a lot of economic cycles, with a lot of changes in the internet, e-commerce, social media coming about, affiliate marketing winning, dying, coming back as influencer marketing, and so on and so forth. All these things, it's built into it, right? It's built into it. That's what makes it so robust and so successful. And when people come into it, like the e-commerce founders come into it, and I always say that, like, an amount of healthy skepticism you have about Rapid 2X, you should have that in your business about everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, you run into trouble with the wrong people, with the wrong crowd. Just like your mama said, don't fall in with the wrong crowd. In your e-commerce business, don't fall in with the wrong crowd, right? Because it could actually hurt you beyond recognition. Like, unfortunately, I've actually been brought in, whether it was venture capital firms or people that went into bankruptcy court and bought back distressed properties and stuff like that, and got in touch with me to actually revive it back. So many examples of it, that when we put the right foundation in, it became really successful. And within 12 to 18 months, it was growing at a faster pace than before, and more profitably also.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah, it's the real deal. Whenever we've interacted with the community, we've done some sessions about Lucky Orange. They always have great questions. They're always engaged. There is a lot of bullshit out there. If you spend time on Twitter and you look at e-com influencers, you're going to end up paying somebody and you're not going to get much out of it. This is not even in the same ballpark as that. So I wouldn't I can't say enough praise for Rapid 2X from every interaction that I've had with it. We'll drop a link, obviously, in the video details over there. We'll drop a link to Growth by Sabir. Is there anywhere else that people can connect with you, follow along? I know you're out there talking on podcasts and doing all sorts of stuff. Anything coming up or anything that you'd like to
number one, actually the link they should go to, and we should include that in the podcast, they should go to growthbysabir.com/lucky, like as in Lucky Orange /lucky, just the first word. If they go there, we would know that they listen to this podcast, and we will give them a special offer because they're coming through here. So we will definitely give them that offer, right? And on the site, there's a lot of detailed, even if you've been to the site, the thing is, it's a living, breathing site. So we are always adding testimonials. We're adding case studies. We're adding detailed walkthrough of those case studies, like literally week by week, like exactly what did we do with this? I just told you $1.5 million to $3 million for Orum Brothers. What did we do to make that happen? So there's a detailed video walkthrough with a Loom video recording of me going through that step by step exactly what was done, so that you can learn from it. Also, the 8D method book is on the site. Also, when you go to the homepage after visiting that link, go to the homepage, and 3/4 down there's a call to action for the 8D method book. Is towards the end of it. So go to the bottom and then climb back up and you'll see it there. So that's there. There's a free content section on the site where I publish a lot of high quality content. We just launched our new YouTube channel so that you can definitely find us there. Something that I am putting out a weekly video. So definitely go and subscribe to the channel. But your journey starts with growthbysabir.com/lucky. Once you go there, you have access to, and it will give you access to all of those other channels and everything else that I just mentioned.
Great. Well, Sabir, it's always a pleasure. I'm sure we'll be connecting soon in our Slacks and our whatever we're going to be doing. So I really appreciate you, though. I know that you're a busy dude, so thanks for carving out some time to talk. And really appreciate it.
Thank you, Sean, for sharing your platform with me.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Lucky Orange Show. Before we go, if you haven't tried Lucky Orange yet, head over to www.luckyorange.com for a free 7-day trial of our leading conversion rate optimization toolkit. What's in that toolkit? Well, let's start with session recordings and heat maps. With session recordings, you can watch a full playback of an entire visitor journey on your website. Everywhere they click, scroll, move, everything they do on your site, a full playback. So you can see what's getting in the way of conversions and what is getting people over that finish line to convert. With dynamic heat maps, you can see the average visitor behavior on a page. So you can see clicks, moves, and scrolls. You can see how far down the page the average visitor is scrolling. And if something is below that line, that means that more than 50% of visitors are not seeing that. Lucky Orange also offers tools like live chat, announcements, and surveys so that you can communicate with your website visitors in real time. So again, if you have not tried Lucky Orange, or if you're not a user yet, head over to luckyorange.com. Check it out. 7-day free trial with no credit card required. If you're a Shopify store owner, head over to the Shopify App Store to download the Lucky Orange app to your store today, as well as BigCommerce, HubSpot, Square, and many more. Check us out, and happy optimizing.